Do you like to dance? Some of us have two left feet. On the other hand, there are people that go out and love to dance the night away. They spend all night dancing. But a dance can change your life. Did you know that? Long ago, there was a lovely blue-eyed blonde named Betty who loved to dance. Betty was married and she had 2 children, a 4-year-old girl named Carolyn and a 2-year-old named Kathy. Sadly, her husband had left her, but she didn't believe in divorce. She waited and waited for him to come back. One day, her father said to her, "Betty, Bob is not coming back. Why don't you go out to the USO dance and have a good time for a change?" So she called up her friend Helen and said, "Would you like to go to the dance with me?" "Sure," Helen said. So on their way to the dance, Betty said to her, "I really would like a partner who dances really gracefully. I love that kind of man." Now in those days, when you went to a USO dance, you were not allowed to dance with only one partner all night. You had to change partners. It was required. Some even danced with Arnold. So she started dancing, and before long, a young man approached her. His name was George. He was tall, he was thin, and he bedazzled Betty. He was a graceful dancer, and they whirled and danced all across the dance floor. She had a wonderful time, and she spied something else. Her friend Helen was dancing with her partner's friend Tom. So that went on for several USO dances. It was Betty, it was George. They were there. They loved to meet at the USO. And soon enough, George discovered he was falling in love. But the path of love is never smooth. There's always some obstacles. In this case, someone else, another soldier, had also noticed Betty. And he even came to call. And when he got there, he gave Carolyn a nice doll and a china set to 2-year-old Kathy. George was furious. "That SOB is horning in on my girl." But later, he found out. Kathy had accidentally broken the china set. George laughed. At last, Betty was his. She fell for him. He fell for her. But yet, there were more obstacles. You see, Betty needed to get a divorce, and they had to wait 2 long years before that could happen. Not only that, but Betty was unable to have any more children. George didn't care. He was going to be father to both Carolyn and Kathy. At long last, they got married. But it wasn't your typical wedding. You see, it was a double wedding. At the same time Betty and George got married, Helen and Tom got married as well. It was a double wedding. Well, the newly married couple started off by going to work. Betty went to work at Bill Johnson's restaurant. George went to work going to school. At last, he finished his education and he got a job with Motorola. At last he had this full-time job, and Betty could be a full-time homemaker, and she made great meals. And they had fun raising their children and going out dancing. It was a great life. I love the fact that George had friends in Toastmasters who called him Eurus. And when I would call Eurus on the phone, I'd ask for Eurus, and Betty would say, "George, telephone." She always called him George. In 2003, they celebrated their 50th anniversary. How else? They had a dance for family and close friends. I'm happy to say my wife and I were a couple of those close friends. And they danced. It was so fun. I drank too much. Fortunately, my wife was my designated driver. But George even danced the chicken dance. It was a great time. But then, in 2004, the music started to slow. George had to go to the hospital. The Toastmasters in District 3 asked me to take him some flowers. So I brought some flowers into his hospital room, and I thought he would like to talk for a while. He didn't. He said, "Get out. I don't want to see you." He didn't want me to see him cry. He was overcome. Finally, his doctor had said, "You only have 2 months to live." He died 2 weeks later of a fast-acting cancer. He'll be missed. The next day, Betty found a note on the nightstand that George had left. He said, "I've loved you all my life." A few years later, the music slowed for Betty as well. Shortly before she passed away, she sent me a message. "Tell everyone hello to the Toastmasters. George always considered them part of the family." Fellow Toastmasters, may the dance of life be as fulfilling for you as it was for George and Betty. Mr. Toastmaster.